Welcome to Email After Hours by SenderScore, powered by Validity.
We're your hosts. My name is Guy Hansen.
And I'm Danielle Gallant, and this is Email After Hours.
Email marketers, prepare yourselves for another Apple update. Dun, dun, dun. But don't panic, though. It doesn't seem like marketers need to brace themselves for another Apple Open-Get-In this time. And not that any email marketers need this refresher, but for the benefit of the tape. In 2021, Apple released an update that included a feature called Mail Privacy Protection, or MPP, which essentially meant that open data would be much less useful for marketers when defining subscriber-level engagement. And soon, Apple will be releasing iOS 18. And today, we're going to be talking about any potential impacts this might have in the email world.
And joining us today is a very familiar voice to our listeners, Jay Schwedelson. So if you've been with us before, you'll remember Jay's incredible insights from his last visit. For those new to our podcast, Jay is president and CEO of Outcome Media and the founder of subjectline.com, a game-changing tool that has analyzed over 15 million subject lines. So with more than 30 years of experience in email marketing, Jay's expertise spans all facets of the field. His influence is profound, having shaped strategies for some of the world's most iconic brands. Welcome back to the show, Jay. It's great to have you with us again.
I'm so excited. You must have run out of all humans to be on the show to invite me back. But I am thrilled to be here. I listen to every single episode, so it's an honor to be here, and this is going to be fun.
Awesome.
And let's dive right into it, because since iOS 18 is imminent, we got to unpack each of the expected changes one by one. And we're going to start with the AI-driven inbox categorization that's coming. So, Jay, will you tell us about the new categories that subscribers can expect to see when they're using the native Mail app on an Apple device?
Yeah, sure. So Apple's iOS 18 is being released in around October, although the features on the Mail app itself might not actually hit until very end of the year or early in 2025. And so basically, that blue icon on your phone, the Mail app itself, if you check your email using that app, which roughly 47% of people do according to Litmus, regardless of what kind of email address you have, doesn't matter if it's business or a consumer address, about 47% of people check using that Mail app. Apple's going to be leveraging what they're calling Apple Intelligence, or AI, to dynamically bucket the emails that you are receiving into basically 4 buckets, either a primary tab, a transactions tab, an updates tab, or a promotions tab. And they're doing this to obviously allow for what they believe to be greater efficiency in how you read your email and greater enjoyment and all this different types of stuff. But if you put your marketing hat on, it's a big deal. If you're not going in that primary tab, or you're not going in the updates tab, and all your stuff's going in promotions tab, you're like, what does that all mean? So, and it's going to all be AI driven. So there's a lot to unpack there.
You've alluded to something, because marketers should be at least familiar with email categorization. Gmail introduced these before, right? So Gmail has promotions, social updates, and that's been in place for a long time. And as you said, it sent marketers into a bit of a tizzy. There are just a ton of articles that came out attempting to reassure senders that the promotions tab is still the inbox, and that subscribers actually wanted their emails categorized. So do you think that Apple will be categorizing emails similarly to how Gmail does? And what do you think the impact will be for subscriber engagement?
So I think that this is very different than Gmail tabs, at least for now. And I'm going to tell you why. There really wasn't and is not an incredible adoption rate for the Gmail tabs. There's some people that use them, but it's not the overwhelming majority at all of people that are using Gmail that are using the tab. So it really has not had a profound impact for marketing emails. The difference is, as of right now this could change. With Gmail, you could turn off the tabs pretty easily. It's kind of like a siloed feature within Gmail. But within the rollout of iOS 18, currently in their latest beta releases, in order to turn off the tabs component of what's happening in the Mail app, right, to turn off the bucketing, you actually have to turn off all of the AI features that will be on your phone. all of Apple Intelligence, like the ChatGPT stuff, the impact on maps, the impact on all the apps that are getting all the AI fun stuff. And so the AI fun stuff is why people are going to get to buy the new phone and upgrade and all that stuff. And they're going to want it. So are they going to turn off all the AI stuff just so that way their emails aren't bucketed? I would guess not. So the adoption rate is going to be significantly higher for people using their iPhones than it is for people that are just using the Gmail app. That being said, the reason I say for now is I believe that there's going to be a revolt of some kind, right? In a lot of ways, humanity is we're lab rats for all the big platforms as it relates to AI, whether it's Gmail or OpenAI or Apple or Amazon. We are lab rats. They keep messing around until they're going to kind of get it right. So I think there's going to be a revolt on this inability to turn off just, let's say, the functionality on the Mail app, which I hope that is the case, because I'm not going to turn off the AI. And I also don't necessarily want all these bucketing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But as of now, that's what's going to happen. And I think that's why it's going to be a bigger deal than the Gmail tabs.
The great AI pushback. You heard it here first. Now, as if Apple Mail tabs wasn't exciting enough, there's also going to be a new digest view, which will essentially showcase all emails from a brand or business in one single place. So senders can think of this visually as a roll-up for all the promos from a single brand. What's your take on the digest view, Jay, and how can marketers make the most of this feature?
That's a great question. And I like the digest view. I think it's good as a user. I like it. I think the thing that marketers are going to have to think about the most is when we do our emails to non-openers, right? A lot of marketers, which is great, still, and I do as well, will send out an email. Whoever is not open the first email, will send out that follow-up email, right? And they'll send it out. Sometimes they don't change the subject line, right? Sometimes they do. But now imagine in this digest view that all the emails that you're sending to an individual are stacked, basically one on top of each other. And all you're really seeing is kind of like that subject line type thing. So if you see stacked an email with the same subject line for 2 emails in a row, that's not going to be good. You're going to look like you're doing something really wrong, right? And then is your non-opener email that you send with that kind of like urgency subject line, if you don't use the same one, how is that going to really look with the other one stacked on top of it? So I think this emailing to non-openers, we're going to have to really kind of reconfigure in our brains how we're doing that, because I think it's going to be different because of that digest view. But the only thing I would say, I want to also manage everyone's expectations for a second here. If you think about how big of a deal is this iOS thing? I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. It's a big deal in probably maybe 6 months to a year from now. And the reason I don't say it's a huge deal right now is only people using an Apple 15 phone and higher, right, have access to the AI functionality. If you have a lower grade phone, like a 12, you can't use this. It doesn't work. Okay. And about 50% of people have an Apple 15 or higher. All right. So all of a sudden, 50% of the people gone. Right. Now, 50% of people check their mail on a mail app. So now you're talking about 50% of 50%. So now we're talking about 25%. So while a year from now, 2 years from now, maybe every Apple phone is going to have all this stuff, whatever. Right now, it's not everybody that's going to be impacted. So it's a management of expectations to a certain degree. So you don't have to totally freak out.
You heard it here. Don't freak out, everybody. It's just another Apple update. We're going to have to keep rolling with the punches.
Right.
But there is another change. And at least for now, we're going to talk about iOS 18 and preheaders. So kind of going back to the whole subject line, preheader display. And rumor has it that iOS 18 will mean kind of the demise of the preheader. Apple Mail will then, once iOS 18 is out, show an AI-generated summary of the email instead. And on Email After Hours and in our Validity blogs, we have sung the praises of preheaders for a while and touted this as really valuable inbox real estate. And now what? They're just going away. So 2 questions for you on this, Jay. 1, how well do you think Apple's AI will create their own previews? And 2, is this good for you, owner of subjectline.com? Will attention and focus land on the subject line moving forward?
I will tell you, when Apple announced the new updates to the Mail app, I said to my team, I go, do they get rid of the subject line? Because we are screwed. And they go, and they're like, no, it's in there. It's in there. They're like, there's no pre-header, but there is a subject line. I'm like, okay, cool. Because we don't own preheader.com. So I was like, that's fine. So yeah, again, I want to see what happens ultimately. Right now, that's exactly what's happening. They're removing the pre-header, and it's basically using AI to grab what Apple deems to be the most relevant component of the message and kind of sticking it in there as this important alert thing in the spot of where the pre-header would go. And I would say 50% of the time it gets it right. 50% of the time it's like, what? What? And so it will get better, I think, over time. The reason that I think pre-headers are going to stick around, at least for a while, is because the usage rate, right? It's not going to be 100% of all emails that are going out there. It's going to be a fraction of a fraction. But within people that are checking their email on the mail app, yeah, pre-headers are going to have absolutely no impact on what you're doing. So you almost have to say in your mind, the pre-header can't contain critical information. It's going to be a bonus as opposed to right now, it's really one of the key steps in your email marketing process. But it wouldn't surprise me if other platforms follow suit and you fast forward a few years and the pre-header's gone. I mean, the real reason the pre-header started was not for there to be additional real estate for marketing. It wasn't so that way you could say, well, you put a subject line, here's our great offer. And then the pre-header says, and by the way, here's a 30% discount. It was never intended for that. It was more about format issue information. It was supposed to be, if you can't view this, click here in the browser or add us to your whitelist or this other nonsense. And over time, marketers are like, wait a minute, look, there's real estate here. I could stick some marketing stuff in. And that's really what happened. So I don't think it's going to destroy performance, but certainly something that marketers need to be aware of. What do you guys think? You guys think it's going to have a huge impact or no?
Well, actually, Guy, as he always does, has made an interesting note here in our speaking points that I want to kind of throw out there with this, which is it does kind of pose whether or not the pre-header was intended to maximize marketing space, right? It did do that. Marketers are capitalizing on this space, and it kind of poses an interesting ethical question, which is who owns this content? Is it the sender, the recipient, the mailbox provider? Like, does Apple actually, quote, have a right to do that?
Well, it's a fair point, right? I mean, Guy, what do you think?
I am going to give the classic consultant's answer and say it depends. I think I think it does pose a broader question, and I think we've probably chatted about this in previous AI conversations, but it's going to pose some really interesting questions for consumer consent when it's taken, because it's basically, do you consent to having your personal data processed? But it may well be that AI processes it in ways that have yet to be imagined. So how can you consent to having your personal data processed in a way that hasn't yet really been envisioned?
Yeah, and along those lines, which is really amazing, if you think about CAN spam, which is the incredibly old, email laws that are on the books in the United States because we can't get our act together like GDPR has, AI, by removing the pre-header, and AI gets it wrong a lot. AI has the ability to stick this thing in the pre-header spot that can cause the recipient to think it's misleading, right? And to open it. And that is actually in violation of CAN spam. So without doing anything, marketers, there's nothing they could do about it. They could actually be running afoul of CAN spam, which is wild because it's almost the impossible law to run afoul of because it doesn't do anything. And so it's this weird situation that AI is just doing stuff that maybe it shouldn't be doing. So that's why I think it's going to take a little while for it to all kind of get the water through the pipes.
I agree. And actually that leads on nicely to our next talking point, because I think it's beginning to sound like AI is starting to act more like the editor-in-chief of our email inboxes. And in addition to what we were just talking about, there's also the question in terms of, will it be able to discern between what I guess I'd call critical business communications, think your transactional emails, your service emails, etc., and perhaps the slightly less critical marketing stuff? I mean, of course, it's all critical, but do you think AI can match the more nuanced judgment of seasoned marketers when it comes to that?
It's a great question. And I think that we are going to start to see something new. Right now, if you go and you Google, what are spam trigger words, which are still, there's a million lists out there. They're all ridiculous because they're not even true. That's not what really triggers the spam, but there's a million spam trigger words. I believe what's going to start to come out by all the different players in the email world is AI trigger words, where what are the words that you need to be putting in your emails that AI is looking for, the AI editor, so to speak, is looking for to prioritize your emails, to make sure you go in this tab, not that tab, to grab what words will then be replaced where the preheader is. Things like schedule or meeting request or exclusive offer or top rated. Words and phrases that we're going to come to learn are the words you need to have to kind of get it pulled into the right places. So I think that's what we're going to see in 2025. A lot of these lists like use these, not these. And we're going to have to learn a whole new kind of way to write our emails. And then the irony of that, I think there's going to be a secondary type of list, and we're already starting to see a little bit, called AI generic word lists. So many marketers now go to AI to write their subject lines, to write this, to write that, that there's this tidal wave of genericness that we're seeing in email, right? And so the way that our emails are going to stand out, the way that you're going to win in 2025 with your email is the humanity of it all. And the irony of AI is pushing us to be more human.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's creating all this generic garbage. And so now we can't say things in the subject line like act now or you won't believe or all this ridiculousness. We need to spell things wrong. We need to use bad grammar. We need to start a subject line with the word and, because AI will never tell us to do that. So we're going to be heading into this world of what are the generic phrases and words you should avoid? What are the trigger words you need to use? And it's going to be a whole mess of stuff that people sending out email need to figure out.
Well, just before we move in, I was just going to say, based on that answer, we should absolutely be looping in my wife to help out with this conversation. She is a teacher, and I can only tell you she's become very, very good at spotting AI-generated content with her students in their essays, that's for sure.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Although I won't tell my kids because they love AI. I'm not going to lie.
Well, not to take us too far off piece, but my wife's big learning is it's all about context. And the moment she spots a word in the content that they've submitted that she's got a pretty clear inkling they've never, has never passed her students' lips before, her first question is, so what does that word mean? And it's like, don't know really.
Oh no, my kids are not do well in that class at all.
They're either using an AI tool or they've finally in 2024 gone and got a thesaurus.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
I'm going to go with AI.
And actually, so much of this conversation is going to be about AI. I think we should probably pivot to some other significant shifts that might be on the horizon. Gmail and Yahoo are rolling out what they're calling automated extractions to kind of enforce annotations. And we've talked about annotations on the podcast previously. These email annotations allow senders to highlight a deal or an offer, for example, like a coupon code, or display product images directly in the inbox. So before you actually click and open the message itself. So do you think changes like this from Gmail and Yahoo are helpful hand-holding, or does it feel more like being voluntold how to manage your email content?
Well, first of all, they need a better naming team. I mean, extractions.
Seriously.
What's going on? I mean, what is that? Who wants anything extracted?
Taken out.
It sounds terrible. This is a class. I don't know why, but everyone always tries to mess with email. And I mean, how many times have there been the killer email app, or this is going to destroy email, or this is going to take over email? Just leave email alone. I never understand it. And this extraction stuff to me is in the same ballpark. Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And the annotations are cool, right? That highlights deals, that highlights stuff, super cool. And the sender's really in control of what was being annotated, so to speak, right? Which is great because the brands are like, oh, let's make sure this deal gets highlighted. Cool, that's a bonus, right? This extraction stuff is, the platforms like Yahoo and Gmail trying to say, ooh, this is actually the relevant stuff. I'm going to pull it out. And first of all, they're getting it wrong a lot. It's not being done particularly well. And there's not a need there. It's not as people like, hey, I really don't understand how to read my email. What does this email say? Can you guys come up with a solution for that? They're solving a problem that doesn't exist. I don't believe that this is something that in its current form is going to remain. I think if you look at like what Apple's doing, what Gmail and Yahoo are doing, again, we are lab rats for how to use AI to make the email experience better and for everybody. And this is not it yet. I would be shocked if a year, 2 years from now, the way that they're leveraging AI to our benefit is the same. I don't believe it will be because people are going to push back and say, don't do this, don't do that. So I think this extraction stuff is short-lived in its current form. What do you guys feel?
Well, I think that either way, lab rats or not, extractions are happening.
Yeah.
Like this is something that's happening. So if marketers don't want to be at the mercy of what Gmail or Yahoo thinks is right to display, marketers should probably be taking advantage of this code. It's really, compared to a lot of things, this is not super difficult. I think they should adopt it. It's kind of like Yahoo and Bimmy. I can't remember what it was called, but before, like if marketers don't assert their own Bimmy record and specify the SVG that they want that to reference to, some mailbox providers will just pull in an image for your brand that they think is right? So you have to exert control or kind of deal with whatever the consequences are.
Totally. That's fair.
And it's like all that personal development training we've all been through over the years. Never assume, because assume makes an ass out of both of us. You guys are going to hate me for this, but we're going to go back to tabs for a second because Apple's not the only player in this game. Gmail is also retooling its updates tab to start harboring more background noise, stuff like mileage summaries, for example. So what do you reckon, Jay? Do you see this as a subtle nudge for marketers to up their game, or is Gmail just doing a bit of, for want of a better expression, digital spring cleaning?
I think it's interesting. I think that Gmail is sort of reacting to Apple, right? Because if we all become really accustomed to using tabs in a more significant way, then the Gmail tabs needs to up its game. So we really all start to use it there as well. And they needed to up their game because their tabs they almost have been like this legacy thing that's gotten no love and no attention. And it's just kind of like, who cares? So I'm happy to see it. I hope that what happens in Gmail and Apple wind up being similar in terms of how you navigate the tabs. I mean, sadly, they won't be because one's a platform, one's a client. It's not like they're apples to apples, no pun intended, right? But it would be great if ultimately there was like this unified way to navigate the tabs because you don't know who's reading on the Apple Mail app. I mean, you generally know who's reading within Gmail. So it's just very, very difficult for marketers to navigate. But I am pro them spending a little more energy about getting it right.
And P.S., I have both on my iPhone. I've got the Gmail app and I've got the native mail app, right. And the emails come into both. So yeah, dreaming the dream with having some sort of cohesive experience between the two of those.
Exactly.
And as we do, we've talked about mailbox providers and marketers, but I feel like one of the things we often don't ask enough is, what about ESPs? Are ESPs ready for all these changes? And I guess we get so many questions about this stuff, right? Like, how do we code for this? What should we know about this? But what should senders be asking for and expecting from their ESPs on this front?
So that's a great question. I think there's one component of all of this that ESPs are going to need to step up their game, and that is related to being able to reply to emails. So what iOS 18, for example, is going to really prioritize is when there seems to be a one-to-one interaction within your email. And especially with email newsletters that come from a brand versus those that come from an individual, right, are going to be reacted to very, very differently within the mail app. So if I send out a newsletter from me as opposed to my company, and within that email, it's written in kind of a more one-to-one tone, and there's the ability that says, hey, reply to this, let me know what you think, or reply to this and I'll send you the latest guide or whatever it is, and the person actually replies. And then I can reply back, or someone in my team can reply back, and this one-to-one communication exists. The likelihood of that email staying in the primary tab or the update tab, as opposed to a brand newsletter that goes out, which is going to go right into the promotions tab, it's going to be much higher if there's that one-to-one interaction. And we're seeing this massive explosion of newsletters, regardless of how big your company is. It could be a massive enterprise company coming from a human being, right? An executive or whatever. And the reason that matters as it relates to ESPs is a lot of ESPs are not set up to, when their emails go out, for the person to actually reply to it, for there to be a mailbox of some kind somewhere where somebody then can reply back, and treating it like a regular, your Microsoft Outlook. They're not set up like that. And there's going to be this really big push to have that level of interaction within your promotional email. So I think that ESPs are going to need to step up their game in that component specifically. And I think they're sleeping on it in a big way.
100%. And I think, just think about the conversation we've had today. It's clear that there's a load of moving parts right now. And by the way, only 3 months out from this year's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the holiday season. And suddenly marketers have got to deal with all of them. The iOS updates, Gmail's retooling, Yahoo's push on annotations. I wonder what our sort of big picture advice is to email marketers. Is there some kind of magic formula that they can apply to sort of tick all of these new boxes? Or is it just a case of being agile and adapting as quick as they can? What's your thoughts?
I think marketers, I know this sounds ridiculous, their best move is to do absolutely nothing, which everyone's very good at. I'm particularly good at doing nothing. And the reason being is there's so many moving parts right now. Things are changing so fast, and the dust is going to take a little while to settle, that you do your thing, keep on, just go with blinders on. And then after the holiday season, head into Q1, be like, okay, what is actually now really going on? How do we really need to react or whatever? Because it's just going to be so much change at one time that if you try to just do it all, it's going to be a big fat mess, and you're going to be chasing your tail, because there's going to be no concrete way to navigate it all as it's being rolled out, in my opinion. I know that's horrendous advice, but I think that it's just overwhelming, all the different changes, and a lot of them are not going to be permanent changes. I don't know. You guys have validity, though. You're the ones telling everyone, what should we be doing?
I'm kind of aligned with you. I think it's the old joke. I've told you forever, stop procrastinating.
That's funny. I like that.
I think it's important to keep on top of what all the changes are, because it gets you forward thinking, right?
Yeah.
As a marketer, about what the technology is going to do, where you may need to go, and especially just to be aware of it in case you see some changes in your KPIs on your side, which we are going to talk about as well today. And while we're thinking about maybe the future, we wanted to address something that's more of a concept than a reality at this point, and that's the auto-deletion of emails. We've seen mailbox providers prompting subscribers to mark messages as spam when they unsubscribe, for example. So do we think that mailbox providers could start deleting emails that haven't been read in, say, 30 days? And would you be there for that idea?
I would be so not there for that idea. I would be so angry. And I would tell you, it would actually cause me to change my email. It would. That would be a change, because I think a lot of people I know this is bad, but a lot of people use their email as a personal search engine where they don't delete their emails. Okay. And they will then go into their search thing and they'll search for something and they'll find it from the year of the flood. And people rely on that. And I get it, though. When email first came out, like really in a heavy way, I was a big proponent of there should be a millipenny tariff on every email sent and received. And that if there was a charge for email, that it would eliminate spam completely, because all the bad actors, there's no barrier to sending email, which is why spam exists, right? If there was like a stamp, the way there is with direct mail, spam would have never occurred. And so the platforms are paying for the party. They get to write the rules in a lot of ways because they're literally paying for the party. So if they want to do it, they can do it. I don't think it's something that people will be okay with. I think the auto question of, hey, do you want to take yourself off the list is totally fine. And I think that that's a good user experience. Unless it's maybe tied to, oh, your storage is running out, you got to upgrade your storage, which happens all the time. That's a whole different thing. I don't see this as being something that's going to become a viable path for them. Do you guys think that that's really going to happen in mass?
My 2 cents worth, there was a really interesting article on Only Influencers last week where they were talking about, do you monitor the long tail of your campaign responses? Basically meaning, do you go back and see what kind of contribution the newsletters that you sent a year ago or more are still making in terms of views generated and traffic generated. And I think that applies to this conversation. If you know that there's a real long tail for your platform, you might be more circumspect about wanting old emails to be deleted. But I think, if you're a daily deal sender where you're sort of sending 3 offer emails every day and the chances of them being revisited further down the line is negligible, I'd be up for it. Sort of anything to sort of, clean up and clear out the inbox.
That's an interesting point too, is that if there was a categorization of those things and you could turn it on for certain things and not for others, that totally makes sense. If there's, like you said, you get these daily deals, that daily deal is useless to me. So I get it. It's just hard to do a catch-all kind of thing for all of your email, because that's where, to your point, especially newsletters, I go back to newsletters for years.
100%. Danielle, I reckon we need to start wrapping up, but Jay's not quite out of the hot seat yet, because we've got a few closing quick fires for him, don't we? My final closing one, you touched on tabs once more. So a fun one for you, Jay. If it was in your gift to introduce a brand new tab for a specific subset of email content, what might it be?
Oh, it would be a reality TV update tab, 100%.
Yes.
I need everything about The Bachelorette, Love is Blind. Love is Blind UK, by the way, is my favorite show right now. Every 90 Day Fiancé, Married at First Sight, all of it in one tab. This would be the most valuable tab that could exist on Earth. In not even my opinion, it's a fact.
Awesome. Especially
what would the icon
digest version?
Yeah, exactly.
What would the icon be, Jay, for the reality?
Great. I think it would be a picture of my face smiling. That's it. That'd be amazing. So if you're listening out there, Apple, Gmail, come on, get on this. What's wrong with you people?
That's true personalization there.
That's right. This podcast is great. I can hang out with you guys all day. It's awesome.
Well, now we know we have to do a reality TV episode, just as a random aside. But thank you so much for joining us again, Jay. As always, you provided such amazing insights for all of our listeners. And we can't wait. Whatever the next one is, reality TV or whatever the next industry chaos will be, we can't wait to have you back. And Guy, why don't you take us out?
Awesome. So be sure to tune in next time. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.org for more resources to help you become a stronger sender.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. 2 weeks.
We'll be there. Be sure to tune in next time and hit subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And don't forget to visit senderscore.com for loads more great resources to help you become a stronger sender.
To all you sleepless senders out there, thank you for joining us after hours, and see you next time.